Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. The season is over, but Napoli still doesn't have a new coach for next season, and there's apparently a list of 40 names that De Laurentiis has, and some restrictions. He wants a 4-3-3 formation, he doesn't want to pay any penalties, and he wants to make sure that Napoli obviously does well. He also said that the 27th of June is the final day for him to consider a new coach, and by then we'll know who it is. So I thought, why not take a look at the potential names and see how likely they are to come, and also how I would rate them. Now, before I go into that, I just want to give Spalletti one final shout out, and I just want to say this guy was able to get us a top 4 finish in his first season and win us a title, even though in the first season we literally had zero transfer market. The only players that we got were on loan, and they were Juan Jesus and Anguissa. And then in the second season, we sold some of the best players that we had in the team, and he still managed to deliver us a title, making a group with all these new players. And props to Spalletti. I really wish that he had stayed, but we gotta move on. So guys, I've made this ad hoc tier list where it's got, as I said before, how likely from 1 to 5 these gentlemen at the top are to come to Napoli. It's not quite 40 names, but there's a lot of people there. And then how I think that they will do in their first season at Napoli. Not long term, not second season, in their first season at Napoli. Starting from they'll win the treble, to title contenders, which means either first or second. Top 4 battle means that they're, with 3, 4, 5 games to go, we're still really not sure if we're going to get Champions League football. We're maybe between 3rd and 5th place. Then there's awful, which is we're nowhere near Champions League football, or we don't manage to achieve Champions League football by the end of that battle. And then Serie B doesn't actually mean Serie B. I don't think that's at all a possibility for Napoli. But it means we would have a season a bit like what Chelsea had this season, where we're 10th or 11th or 12th. There's absolutely nowhere near anything. It's horrible. And literally worst case apocalyptic scenario. Now, in this list of managers that we have here, there's a bit of a mix between guys that are free on the market, guys that are currently coaching other clubs but have said that they may consider other things, or the press is saying that they may consider other things. There's international coaches, Italian coaches, coaches that haven't even been linked to Napoli, others that maybe have already been linked and been discarded, but why not? Let's just keep putting them there until we know for certain that they're not coming to Napoli. So let's just start randomly, and let's start with Nagelsmann, all right? Because he was linked at the start quite a bit. No, not you, Benitez, Nagelsmann. Let's go with Nagelsmann. He was linked at the start, and I think he did a decent job at Bayern. We saw how much Tuchel struggled when he came on, and I think that shows that Nagelsmann is not a bad coach. Obviously, he did well earlier at Leipzig. I do think, though, that he is still a little bit inexperienced. He's super young, in his 30s, and the Serie A is very different from Germany. I think he will have an adaptation period, so I think in his first season, he's not going to go out and be first or second. I think he would be in that top 4 battle because he's a great tactician. So I'll put him somewhere along that row. And how likely he is to come? Look, he's technically not got a job at the moment, but he's very close to signing with PSG. And he has a clause still with Bayern where you would have to pay, I think it's 10 million to release him from there. And it's just not the type of money that De Laurentiis wants to spend on him. So I'll put him 3 out of 5 likely, but maybe leaning towards a 2. And I would say he would get us a top 4. So let's move on to another foreign coach. Let's go with the Portuguese Conceição, or whatever his name is. It's impossible to pronounce. He's managing Porto right now. And look, I don't think he's that likely to come. I think he's going to keep managing Porto. I think his ambition when he goes eventually to Italy, because I do think he's going to go to Italy, is to manage Inter. He played at Inter. I think he's eyeing up that next post-Inzaghi move. I don't really rate him too highly as a coach. Look, I looked at his Champions League games a few times, and it's not a team that gave me a lot of enthusiasm. Obviously, against Inter, they got knocked out, and for long stretches of that tie, it was a super boring game. I mean, Inter didn't attack too much, but Porto, they were nowhere near good enough for 85 minutes until they finally woke up out of desperation at the end. It's just not the type of profile that I'm looking for. And I think that he would actually struggle to get top four in Italy on his first season. And I don't even think he's that likely to come. So I'll put him under awful. Awful choice. I don't think it'd be good football to watch. So I'll put him there. I know this is a hot take, by the way. A lot of people rate him. Next, let's go with another Portuguese. Let's continue down that Portuguese route, and let's go with Paulo Fonseca. Now, Fonseca, guys, he was with Roma for 2 seasons recently before Mourinho, and I don't think he impressed. He had the expectation to bring them back to Champions League, managed a 5th and 7th place finish. If he couldn't get top 4 with Roma, he might be able to with Napoli because we're a better team for sure, but I don't know. I don't want him. I think it wouldn't be the best thing for us. Look, I think he's going to be able to get top 4 just because of his experience in Serie A, but I don't want him, and I don't think he's super high up De Laurentiis' list. I'll put him under a 3 out of 5 likely, and he'll be able to get the top 4, but just about, pretty much in between top 4 and awful. Maybe I was a bit hard on the Porto manager before, maybe. Now let's go to some Italian managers. All right, let's go to Thiago Motta. Look, Thiago Motta for Bologna has been impressive. He's got that team playing some good football, and I think that he could do really well at a bigger team. I don't think they would be immediate title contenders, but I think that they could challenge for the top 4. He got 8th or 9th with Bologna, maybe even 7th if I'm not mistaken, somewhere along that. So for sure he can get top 4 with a better team. But he said he wants to stay at Bologna because he wants to build a project. He wants to just get a bit more experience under his belt. He's very wise. He doesn't want to burn himself out too quick. Having said that, De Laurentiis, if he comes up with a big check, and says, look, I'm keeping all these superstars for you, come coach us, I think he would accept it. But I think he's also eyeing that Inter job a bit like the Portuguese manager from Porto. So I would say 2 out of 5 likely, but he would get top 4. Now, what I like about Motta is also his experience as a player. Won the Champions League, knows everybody in world football, played in other places like in PSG, did really well for the national team. Like, this guy knows what he's doing, and I think that he would be a great coach over the next 20 years. Right, let's keep it with the Italians that have already rejected us. Let's go with Italiano. Italiano seemed to be the most likely candidate a few days ago, and then after Fiorentina lost the Conference League, voices came out saying that he's decided to stay, and De Laurentiis is not the type of guy that will go and pay the penalty to acquire him from Fiorentina. I think it's about €8 million, apologies, the penalty to get him from Fiorentina. And you know what? If Fiorentina don't want to release him, even if De Laurentiis could pay, I don't think De Laurentiis will, because he doesn't want to anger their owner Commisso. They're quite good friends. So look, without Fiorentina's blessing, this guy is going nowhere. He'll definitely stay at Fiorentina. I do think that with him we would get top 4, but I don't think it'll be amazing. I think I think he's going to actually struggle at times in periods of the season. I think we will be between that 4th and 5th spot with him. Because, look, his defensive work still needs a lot of improving. He's great going forward, but he's the type of guy that the first season will struggle, and the second season he could win the title. But the first season, he just still needs to understand how to get the best out of the defense, especially with Kim probably leaving. I don't see him having a smooth season. Now, let's go with another Italian, Palladino from Monza. Look, this guy, I rate him quite highly, and this is a wild take, super wild take, but I think he could get 3rd place with Napoli and maybe even contend for the title. Because what I've seen from Monza at times, he's been able to beat some of the biggest teams, right? And some guy that's able to do that with a newly promoted team means that he's got the minerals. So this is a super wild take, maybe super disrespectful to guys like Nagelsmann and Fonseca and all these guys with more experience, but I feel like he would do a better job. And look, I can't prove this scientifically. You can't disprove it either, but I like Palladino. I like him, and the fact that the owner of Monza passed away recently, maybe that opens up a door where we can take their manager away from them, because who knows, maybe the new owner might have a different view on how they want things to be run. But still not super likely, because I do think that actually the new owner will do everything they can to keep him. But I think that he would be a super good coach for Napoli. On the other hand, Dionisi, the other Italian, I don't think is likely at all, and I think he would be awful for us. Actually, I think he's going to get not relegated, but fired within the first 15 games if he comes to Napoli, just because he's not good enough. I'm going to put him there. He's not at the level of other Sassuolo managers. I just don't rate him. And that, again, could be a super hot take, because other people rave about how good Sassuolo plays. I don't see it that way. I think they are playing... when they play well, it's because of the work that other managers have done before him. And I don't think he's even considered by De Laurentiis, to be honest. I would be super upset if he does end up being a Napoli coach next season. Not to say that he can't improve and in the future be a great Napoli coach, though. All right, let's move past some Italians and let's go with some foreigners. Let's go with Luis Enrique. Now, guys, Luis Enrique is the guy that De Laurentiis wants. Let's be honest about that, all right? He's the guy that has coached Spain in the World Cup. Okay, didn't perform amazingly, but still, he did really well with them in the Euros. I think outplayed Italy and were unlucky, I think, maybe not to win that game against Italy. Otherwise, he could have, gone on to win a Euro with Spain. He also won the Champions League with Barcelona, got named Manager of the Year that season. He won La Liga, Copa del Rey. He's won everything. He's an amazing coach. Players would love to play under him. He plays a 4-3-3. He likes young players. Like, everything points to him being the best man for the job. And you know what? Like, he maybe, might not win the treble, but he would do pretty well. And definitely be a title contender. But unfortunately, I can only say he's 4 out of 5 likely to come, because I think he's aiming for that PSG role. He's fighting with Nagelsmann for it, and also for a big maybe Premier League move. But then again, there's no real option available for him in the Premier League unless he decides to go for a bottom half of the table team, and I just can't see him do that. So yeah, I think it's the guy that we want. So De Laurentiis will push for him. He'll pay what Luis Enrique wants for him to come here. And then we just have to hope that PSG don't get him before us. But yeah, I don't think he's the number one on the list of likely candidates. I think there's more likely ones you'll see later. Let's go with another Spaniard. Let's go with Rafa Benitez. Now, a lot of you guys, I know what you're saying. No, not again. Rafa Benitez, we already had him. He does a lot of turnover, and he's a bit leaky in defense, and he hasn't coached in God knows how many years at a very competitive level. All true, but he knows Napoli. He knows these players. He follows Napoli games every single week. He even talks to the Laurentiis. He's basically an advisor for Napoli already. He is the guy that turned Napoli into an international team. He got us the likes of Callejon, Mertens, Raul Albiol, Higuain, Gulam. He's incredible at the mercato, even though maybe that might not be something that De Laurentiis wants him to do. Maybe De Laurentiis wants to be the guy that chooses the players this time. Maybe 10 years ago, he needed the coach to give some sort of input because he was more inexperienced. But I think now De Laurentiis wants a bit more control. So there might be a clash there. But let's not forget that Benitez won us some titles. He won us a Coppa Italia, won us a Super Cup. No, he didn't win us the Coppa Italia, but he won us the Super Cup after Mazzarri won us the Coppa Italia the previous season. And he was super close to getting us to the Europa League final. We lost the semi-final against Dnipro because of a goal that was 3 meters offside. Ridiculous decision. But otherwise, we would have probably won that tournament. So, he guarantees you a good European run, I think. Let's not forget he won the Champions League with Liverpool. It guarantees you a good cup competition. I think he would win the Coppa Italia the first season for sure. If not, get us at least the quarters of the Champions League. And I think he would be a title contender. I think he has the experience now, the understanding of the Serie A, the understanding of Napoli as an environment, of how the club works. That's super useful. Like, he's the guy that you just plug and play, right? Because you don't have to teach him anything about the club. He doesn't have to get used to anything. He knows everything. He just will go and do his business. And people still want to be coached by him. So I would say we would be at the same level as Luis Enrique here. A good Champions League run, probably get us a Coppa Italia and maybe win us the league with a double. So I would put him at 4 out of 5 with Luis Enrique. I wouldn't mind him. Now let's go with someone who could win the treble, and that is Zidane. I think he's the only one that you could say when he comes to Napoli, if he comes to Napoli, you could say, you know what? Let's think about winning the treble, because he's won it. He's won the Champions League recently with Real Madrid. The thing is, I don't think he's likely at all to come to Napoli. He has no history with us as a club. He's a Juventino, and he really wants to coach France. And he wants to remain available just in case something happens with Deschamps. He doesn't want to be tied with some club and then that opportunity to manage France goes away. Having said that, he also, I think, doesn't want anything other than Real Madrid on his CV, maybe PSG. Because I think he really cares about being an icon for a legendary club or an icon in France. And nothing take away from Napoli. We are massive, but we're not Real Madrid level. And I think he really wants to keep that sort of level. And, I think it's kind of convenient for him, right? Because if he comes to another club and doesn't do so well, his rating will go down slightly. So he's at the highest rating possible right now after what he did in recent seasons. And I don't think he'll take the risk with Napoli. Now, another coach which is involved with, let's say, national teams or, Zidane isn't involved with it, but wants to go there. One guy who's coaching a national team is Mancini, and there were rumors that he might come to Napoli, and those rumors were quickly put away by the Italian FIGC, which means that something happened. Because you don't comment rumors if nothing happened. You only comment on things and try to put them under the rug if something did happen. So De Laurentiis has contacted Mancini, I think. Obviously, we've got some Nations League games coming up, very important ones. And I think out of respect, De Laurentiis maybe has stopped approaching him and the papers are not talking about it anymore. But come Sunday, when all that's over, maybe a few rumors about him coming to Napoli will come back up. And look, we've got 2 games to play with Italy. If we don't manage to do something good in those 2 games, if we don't play well, if we don't convince, and if the people start turning on Mancini, then he might say, you know what, maybe I'm not the best man for the Italy job anymore. I won the Euro, but it's time to go back to club football. And he would take Napoli. His wife is from Naples. He loves the Serie A. He's already won abroad. He's won the Prem with Man City, so he doesn't feel the need to coach elsewhere. He would come back to Italy. So I would say that under him, we would be great title contenders. I don't think he's done too good of a job in cup competitions, in domestic cup competitions. But in the league, he's not bad. So we would be title contenders. But I don't think he's super likely. I think he's at a 2 out of 5 likely to come. Let's see though what happens in 2 days. In 2 games after the whole Nations League. But let's see what happens in 2 games after the Nations League. I think depending on how we play and the result, he might go up or down on that likely scale. All right, let's go to another foreign coach, Paulo Sousa, ex-Fiorentina coach. Look, I don't think he's up to the level of Napoli. He's never coached a really big team, and I think it's just too risky to give him the job. He hasn't done enough in the Serie A with Fiorentina to prove that he's able to manage a team at the top half of the table. Obviously, this season he's been with Salernitana and did a fantastic job. There was a period where he came and, he lost the first game and the last game that he was in charge. But in between, those 14 games in between, he only lost once. Incredible achievement for a team in the bottom half of the table. Having said that, there were way too many draws in that period. He is not someone that I think is able to have teams play super attractive football whilst being solid at the back. He had to make a decision with Salernitana to be solid at the back. But I just can't see him coming to a team like Napoli and, all of a sudden doing what Spalletti did. So I think he would be able to definitely battle for the top 4. I think he could get a 4th spot, but it won't be from the first season like an amazing season. And you would have to pay Salernitana a bit of a fee to get him. So I would put him under the 2 out of 5 likely. Let's find some room for him so his face is not covered. Let's go there. Paulo Sousa, we'll put him there. All right, now let's go with the last 4. De Zerbi. Now, De Zerbi, look, he was pretty clear that he wants to stay in the Premier League, so I'll put him 1 out of 5 likely. I think there's nothing that can convince him to leave the Premier League now. He said he wants to come back to Italy later, but I feel like he wants to win the Premier League first. And it's super hard to exit the Premier League and come back and then go on to win it. He wants to make sure that he builds his way up. Now, he's clearly not going to do that with Brighton, but who knows how long Jurgen Klopp is going to stay at Liverpool. And Guardiola only has 2 more years on his contract. And trust me, if he keeps doing what he's doing with Brighton, he will be one of the first people on that list of Man City or Liverpool to replace their coaches. And when he then gets that job, he can go on and win the Prem. Once he's done that, then maybe he can say to himself, all right, I've accomplished something great. Now let's go back home. And for him, home is Naples because he is Neapolitan through and through, played for Napoli. He would come back to Napoli. He will be a Napoli coach is my prediction for the future, but just not this time around, not for the next 5 or 6 years. So for now, 1 out of 5 likely, but I think with his experience, his style of football, we would be title contenders for sure. All right, the other Italian, Antonio Conte. This is someone that De Laurentiis has wanted for a very long time because he's a guarantee of success, especially in the first season. He has a way of just getting to the minds and hearts of his players in the first season. He's done it with Juve, done it with Inter, done it with Chelsea. You could say he hasn't done it with Spurs, but who has? They're bottlers, and they're worse off without him ever since he got sacked. He would be definitely a title contender. However, he's not amazing in European competitions, so I don't think we'd win the treble with Conte. And I don't like his style of football. He tends to play three at the back, which is not something that De Laurentiis wants to see. And in the long term, he will destroy the club because he will complain about everything and air out all the dirty laundry and put De Laurentiis and Conte together. It will be absolute chaos. I think De Laurentiis, as much as he likes Conte and would like to have him at Napoli, something always tells him, you know what, let's not go there. Also, his salary expectations are super high, so I don't think he's likely. I'll put him at the 1 out of 5, maybe 2 out of 5 likely, just because he's actually free. He doesn't have a job right now. Now, the last two, Rudi Garcia and Galtier. Let's start with Rudi Garcia. Now, Rudi Garcia did super well with Roma in his first 2 seasons when he was there. 2 second-place finishes, and only because he was up against a formidable Juventus team. Then didn't do so well in his 3rd season and got sacked, and Spalletti replaced him, and Spalletti did much better than him. But let's focus on his first few seasons because we're looking at that. We're looking at how a manager is able to do well in his first season in charge. We're not taking a look at how they could do if they stay 3 or 4 years. Now, the only thing is that Roma experience is a long time ago. Since then, he's managed in France quite a bit. He's managed in the Saudi League, and he hasn't done extremely well. I mean, yes, there was a point where he got to the Champions League semi-final with Lyon, but I think that was more of a one-off than something that he built. So, look, he's not an awful coach. Definitely is able to get us in the top 4. Could maybe challenge for the title. I think he'll be between the title and top 4 in his first season. And I think he's likely to come to Napoli. He's one of the most likely because he's free right now. So I'll put him 5 out of 5 likely. And in between challenging for the title and a top 4 finish, probably 3rd is where, he would end up. And finally, Galtier. He is, after Luis Enrique, the next guy that De Laurentiis wants. He's breaking up with PSG, not because he wasn't able to win the Champions League. I mean, there's plenty of other coaches that weren't able to do that, but because they just need a new guy for that changing room. But it's not because he's bad. It's not because he's a bad manager or a bad coach. It's just that everyone fails in that dressing room. And you need a new guy to come in and, at least for the short term, bring some stability. Now, he did manage to win the title, at least, at PSG, which is not something that every manager does, because there have been periods over the last few years that PSG has not won the title. For example, in the year 2021, which, would you believe, Galtier won that year with Lille. Yes, a Lille side that had just given away Victor Osimhen. He was still able to win the league with them. So he's an incredible coach. And look, in his first 15 games in charge of PSG at the start of this season, he won 13 of them, drew 2. He was undefeated and had a plus 34 goal difference. They were having fun. They were the best team alongside Napoli at the start of the season. Then the World Cup happened. Messi against Mbappe, the final, and they clashed. And I think that the dressing room took sides. They never really were able to make a group again. Put inside Neymar, he was also causing a bit of trouble. His sister's birthday comes up in the second half of the season and all that nonsense that always happens around PSG. I think any coach would have struggled there. But what he did at the start, before all that chaos, is the true Galtier. And I would love to see him try his trade in a different league in Italy. He's got the age and the experience to do it. He's already won the league twice in France. There's no way he's going to another club in France. Everything would be a step down from him after PSG. He is ready for this. In France, you're not allowed to contract 2 managers at once. So he's waiting for that to be settled by PSG. I think they'll pay him 6 million. But he does have a salary expectation of 5 million, which is quite high. But I think the Laurentiis would be okay with paying that because he's getting an international coach and a coach that has developed youngsters such as Osimhen, Botman, Renato Sanchez, Mike Maignan. So he's a guy that knows what he's doing, and I think the Laurentiis really likes him. He is also a guy that is super flexible with his formations. So, for example, Rudy Garcia is great because he's 4-3-3 and he likes fast wingers and all that, but that's all he knows. Galtier, he's tried so many. At Saint-Étienne, he had a 4-2-3-1, sometimes a 4-3-3. At Lille, he was a 4-4-2. At PSG, he's tried so many. He's tried 3 at the back. He's tried a 4-2-3-1, a 4-3-1-2, a 4-3-2-1. He's tried everything, right? He's tactically a chameleon. And look, we are very keen on the 4-3-3 as we said, but you never know how things evolve over the course of a season. And to have a guy that knows how to play something else as well, maybe when you can't unlock an opposition, change it up in the second half to something different, I think is quite useful. So overall, Galtier, I really like him, 5 out of 5 likely, and I think we would contend for the title. I don't think, however, he's got enough European experience in the Champions League to really go beyond the quarterfinals, so I don't think with him we'll be able to do better than Spalletti. So guys, there you have it. This is a snapshot of how likely it is that these coaches will come to Napoli and how well I think they would do. Now, the top 4 likely candidates, Benitez, Luis Enrique, Garcia and Galtier, would all get top 4, so we're in good hands. I think a few of them could win some silverware, which is quite nice as well. So let's just see how it goes. And let's hope that we don't get someone like Dionisi, which I think would be a huge step down instead, or someone who's maybe not even on this list. Guys, if you've liked this video, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe. And let me know if you agree with my tier list that I have going on here, and if you would change anything, and if you maybe have someone outside of this list that you would like for Napoli, put that down in the comments below. And as always, guys, have a good one, and Forza Napoli sempre. Ciao!